So here I am with some of my late war British infantry. I've cleaned them up with a little bit with a hobby knife, removed some of the worst flashing, and then had a go at sanding down some parts of it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and prepare these for priming. And so what I'm going to use is get a tongue depressor, and I'm going to put a few dabs of PVA glue on there. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to just paint these up a little bit easier, and also get the priming done without really any difficulties at all. So just stick those on like that there, let it dry a little bit, and then after that it'll be ready for priming. And then after we've primed these, we'll be able to start with the painting. There's a lovely little British infantryman with a set of bagpipes. So here we are with our British infantrymen. I've got them primed up with a little flat black primer. You can see here it's going to give us a nice finish for painting. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint the uniform a nice brown color in order to create a base coat for that. So you'll see a lot of guides online using different colors. Really any old brown will do. We're going to be using an inside out painting method. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint the things which are deepest in the recesses here. And so the color that we're using here first as our base coat is Vallejo Burnt Umber. You can see it there. So I'm just going to put a nice thin layer in. Don't need to be too neat with this because it is the first layer, and any little overruns we can always patch up later on. Okay, so as I said, we're going to be doing a multiple layer step and approach here. So there you have it. Next up, we're going to tackle the flesh, and I'm going to be doing this one a little bit different than what I normally do. I'm going to be starting off with beige red. Now you can follow along any of my other videos for different skin tones, but today we're going to be using Vallejo beige red as our base color for our skin tone. So we're just going to apply a nice little coat onto our infantryman's face and hands, just over here. So get reasonable amount onto your brush, just so you can control the flow. Just going to paint in here a liberal coating. Remember though that this is just the first coat, and that there will be others after this. Okay, so I'm just going to go around here, and also don't forget the hands, the backs of the hands there. Of course, there's so many different ways in which you can approach this and painting their hands and also their faces and really any exposed flesh. Okay, the next stage we're going to hit up is the painting of the helmets, and for that we're going to make use of US Olive Drab from Vallejo Model Color. So this is a really nice color. It gives pretty good coverage as well. So we're just going to really be painting here the helmet and also the water bottle on our figure. So again, try to be a little bit neater with this step because we've kind of finished with some of our base coats at this point. And so we want to be getting into the detail mode now. Just trying to make sure that we are hitting the water ball around here like this. Okay. Okay, for this next step, we're going to be tackling the guns, rifles, and any entrenching tools that our units may have with our flat brown. So in this case, the model that we're going to be tackling doesn't actually have an entrenching tool obvious on the miniature. So it's just going to be for the rifle in this case. So we just put a little bit of brown the whole way along. We'll cover up the muzzle and stuff with black a little bit later on in the final step. So the next step is to paint all of the webbing and the backpack on the infantryman, and for this we're going to make use of Vallejo model colors khaki. Okay, so let's get a good nice base coat of this one. So I'm going to apply it pretty liberally all over the backpack and the webbing of the infantryman. So what you'll find is some people will tell you to paint it a beige color, but really it was much more of a khaki brownish green color. In reality, it's just, you know, in 80 years since the wars have been fought, a lot of weathering has occurred. Things might not have been stored exactly as they should have been. Next then we're going to paint the boots a simple black color, which was, they might not have started out black, but by the time they were polished over a number of tours and inspections, they would have become quite black indeed. Okay. I see I've missed the gaiters there. Those should have been painted in khaki as well. Let's go back and touch that up. So that's, apart from the gaiters, pretty much ready now for our initial shading. So at this point we're pretty much done with our base coats on each one of the different areas of the infantryman, and so now we're going to move on to the shading step. Now I like to use Citadel Colors Agrax Earth shade as opposed to any Vallejo or Army Painter tone or shade or ink, as I like the way that it kind of sits in the recesses and doesn't really tint the model too much, but it does still give you a little bit of shadow in the recesses, which I like. So we're going to use this on our infantrymen and all of them. So sorry about that. So got our infantryman here. He's got all his base coats. They've all dried up nicely, and so I'm just going to put a reasonable coat on. Don't let it pool too much, as it can go opaque if it does in the recesses, but try to work it into the recesses nicely, like so. Get into the nice, just to give it a nice little definition, to really make those base coats pop. And even actually at this point, just after the shade, you could almost get away with stopping at this point and just taking it to the table, but we're going to take it an extra step further and just see how that model can really pop. The next stage then is to just try and bring up that skin tone a little bit by using a second shading layer, this Reichland Flesh shade, on the skin of our infantryman, because whilst the Agrax Earth shade gives us a nice deepening of the color, a nice shading in the recess, it does tend to leave the skin rather dark. So we'll try to bring that up a little bit with the Reichland Flesh shade wash. So we'll just apply a little even wash over all of the skin areas, so that would be the hands and the feet, or sorry, the hands and the face. So and around all of the facial areas, just get all the skin there. Also, of course, don't forget the hands. Oh. Our next step then is to bring up the uniform of our infantryman using English uniform, surprisingly enough, from Vallejo model color. So we're just going to apply this relatively liberally, trying to keep a little bit of the burnt umber in the recesses. So if I just come around here, see, I just put some along here. Try my best to get a good even coverage, but not being too worried if, for example, I don't get a perfect coverage, because we will do another step after this on the uniform. I mean, you could even just leave it at this point now if you wanted, because we've got a couple of layers here. This would definitely suffice for tabletop quality. Maybe we need to bring the skin tone up a little bit, but the armor would do nicely, or the uniform. So since we've now double shaded the skin, we can bring it back up again actually with beige red again. So just pure beige red is what we'll use to bring the skin tone back up to something more resembling the skin tone that we're looking to achieve. So I just try to leave the shade in the recesses. I'm just looking to try and paint on sort of the nose, the cheekbones, things like that. Not too much into the recesses. Also, of course, don't forget about the hands. Those also need to be brought up in tone. So just get the fingers, and so on. And then after that, we can highlight it last. So the last step in our skin tone will be to just highlight the sort of the end of the nose, the cheekbones, and the chin with basic skin tone, maybe the knuckles as well. Now this is a step that you could probably skip. I mean, the skin is already tabletop standard at this point. I mean, if you're playing a war game or whatever, you probably won't even notice that their nose isn't like highlighted and that there isn't a depth. But if you want to add a little bit of extra special character to your models, you know, then by all means, this is a little extra step. This very pale skin color, skin tone. Now, if you ever find someone in real life with this sort of skin tone, they might want to get out in the sunshine a little bit. But as a top layer highlight, it's quite good. But I wouldn't start off with it. Now we're going to go back and we're going to touch up the webbing, the backpacks and so on with our Vallejo model color khaki. So we're just going to bring those back up to a brighter finish than what we've seen here. So just take care to try and keep it to the higher edges, just so we don't lose that shading. Just be a little bit careful so that the shading still comes through. You don't have to be super duper careful if this is just for gaming purposes, but if you want to use this in a diorama or something, you probably want to take some extra care. Our next step then is to just bring up the helmet and the water bottle again with our US olive drab. So this can even be almost like a dry brush actually, because you don't want to lose all of the shading that is present there in the helmet especially. So just going over quite lightly, just trying to get a nice, just bring that up again. It's got quite dark with the shading. So we want to try and make that the sort of characteristic green color that the Tommies would have had. And of course, don't forget your water bottle back around here on the other side. With its canvas cover to just sort of try and avoid any clinking sounds that might give away the presence of our infantryman. Next, we're going to highlight the rifle with some flat brown, just really along the raised edges of it. And the butt of the gun. Like so. Now we're going to highlight the khaki of the webbing with German beige World War II here. Right. Just really on the edges, the most exposed, sort of under the light. We'll do top of the bag, around the edge, and so on. And on the webbing, of course. Now we're going to use Vallejo Khaki Grey to highlight up the infantryman's uniform. So really you're just looking to kind of put it on the extreme highlights of, like, so the tops of the knees, so on. Maybe wherever the light would hit the infantryman's uniform naturally. So now we have the completed miniatures, based as well, just simple flock and some static grass there. You can see that it comes together pretty well in a relatively short period of time, not too detailed, not too complicated. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Remember, of course, if you did enjoy this content, to like and subscribe, and comment down below if you have any questions about anything that you've seen in this video, or indeed other videos, or if you've got something you'd like me to put together a painting tutorial for. I would be happy to answer your comments. Thank you again for watching. Bye bye.